Well, we'll probably get into that in this call. I am just blocks away from the protest that's happening right now in downtown LA. It's the right moment for three white girls to talk about racism.
Well, yes, I feel like, who did we have last, Kelsey? Who was it again? Remind me, who did we just interview? I don't even remember. Oh my God, this is bad. Who was it?
What do you mean? Because we do them all out of order, so.
Who did we just interview?
On Monday?
Yes, last Monday.
Ashley Gordon.
Thank you. Ashley Gordon. Yes, Ashley Gordon, Manifested with Ash. Okay. And we did the whole thing, and it was just not necessarily at the beginning, but it was kind of in the beginning of it. It was Monday. So it came up. I know that this is a place, it is definitely a place of healing. I just think that, Kelsey, I don't know if I can speak for you. We just don't necessarily know what we should say.
I mean, I think I know what I want to say.
Kelsey has been saying a lot of things she wants to say, and I've been very, very vocal on social media about where I stand. As a mom of biracial kids, Kelsey, you're biracial. I feel like there's a lot of stuff I could bring to the table, but I'm just terrified of stepping on anyone's toes. And I know a lot of people are afraid of that right now, but I also feel like whoever needs to hear what I have to say is going to hear it. Yeah. What do you feel like, Steph?
I think that this is a point of an opportunity to listen. Like, I also have held back on saying stuff, not that I'm scared to step into it, but because my voice is not the most important thing to hear. And right now, I mean, I have a very serious narrative that's still in my body because I'm physically holding pain for what has happened in my area, which is since, the first round of protests, so like the last Friday and Saturday of May, my block in downtown LA was the epicenter of all the violence and the looting. So I watched my own neighbors from my building take fire hydrants out to put out fires that were too close to our building, and watch every piece of retail on our block be looted. And I'm not, I don't want to do but I'm just traumatized by seeing my own community.
Yeah.
Right. And yet knowing that, like, I'm holding pain in my body. I'm an empath. How could I not? And then I did some other things, and I'll share that in this call, but to really feel this moment, I immersed myself in every documentary and everything that I can watch right now. Cause I thought I'm woke enough, but you can't be enough, because our friends of color have generational stories in their body that they're holding. So like to even begin to experience that moment with that intensity, like, we need to do it. Like, if you feel pain, that's the time to keep going into just listening. And I don't think posting, is like the right place for any of us. I'd rather forward or repost things.
Exactly.
Voices.
Yes. Because I'm going to say, I've had just in the last week, they say, if you want to be a space, if you want to hold space for more Black voices, why is your feed so white? And I was like, not necessarily at me, but I thought about it. I was like, I mean, it is. It's all white girls. It's all white ladies who I feel like I can relate to in my message, and that I feel like would receive my message the best, which is natural for humans to do. But I was okay, well, let's see if let's just explain. And I've had so many, people are putting lists out, go follow this person for inspiration, motivation, spirituality. Oh my gosh, my feed has never been more on fire. And they, meaning the people of color that I've started following lately, have put in so much love and so much inspiration for the collective, which is I think that's my focus. Kelsey, I think you can agree. Our focus is where are we going as humanity? Let's just let me focus on that, and anything I can help to bring that faster. Yes. Yeah. So I've been reposting a lot of their inspiration and a lot of their messages because it's so on point and it's so freaking fire that I just really can't get enough of it, honestly.
But I would also argue, this won't be a surprise to you, Lindsay, since we've already talked, that getting off social media, because I can also guarantee the three of us and the color of our skin, we know somebody that's racist, and we've decided to avoid that person. We've, blocked Aunt Carol on Facebook because we don't want to see her nonsense. And it's getting trained and skilled and brave enough to have those conversations and try to like, try to give some insight and relate, because what bothers me so much about social media, and I have such a love-hate relationship with it. I mean, I've done a YouTube show for 3 years. I mean, I use the medium, I use it for clients. I see that the value in it, but I also look at it as value neutral because of all the bad stuff. But just because you posted a meme doesn't mean that you're not as susceptible to turning into an Amy Cooper in a park. You know, like,
right.
And the real work has to get out of social media and go, well, I'm woke, I posted this, I donated here, I shared this. No, get off there and relate and have conversations with people that are, not going to be pleasant. Be willing to make mistakes, and do that work. Like, I just think overall, I'm just going to stand by my words about it. I think it's a time to listen and learn. And I'm not a big fan of Amazon and anything that they really do, or Bezos to begin with, but I think they've done a really good job of archiving Black history with documentaries, with films that you can just immerse yourself in, especially if we're still quarantined, instead of watching some other nonsense. And I would say, when it starts to hurt, because we have to, as a white American, get real honest about the identity of this country, and know that, when I start to reflect on what I learned in school, it always showed us as the hero. And, even like Abraham Lincoln, he freed the slave. He was racist. He talked about segregation. He talked about whites being better than blacks, but the narrative in our white schools was like, oh no, we were always on the right side. We've always, done the right thing. And that's just not true. And so the opportunity to go, you know what, I gotta challenge my own identity, and it's gonna be painful, and I gotta get real with that, and really pay attention to like what I've had the privilege to turn on and turn off when it was convenient to me, and then somehow find a new identity and what is really true about this country.
Kelsey, you're bouncing.
Oh, I just have anxiety all the time. But I was thinking that, it would be good to focus on solutions. Well, also commentary, because I think people value our perspectives a lot, and we have a unique perspective to offer. But like, in my mind, I feel like one of the biggest solutions in this whole mess, all the messes that we're going through, not just the whole racism, is understanding, one, and then part two is taking everything in and seeing it as a part of yourself. So how can I see the earth as a part of me? Then I won't hurt it. How can I see this Black person as a part of me? Then I won't hurt it. It's the illusion of separateness, right? That creates these win-lose scenarios, or really lose-lose scenarios, because if you're hurting something outside of yourself, it's really is a part of you in truth. So you're just hurting a different part of yourself. So you're not actually winning, even if you think you're getting the upper hand. And I just wish right now that people would really step into other people's perspectives, not just their shoes. Because I think what people do is, oh, if I was this person in their shoes, I wouldn't feel like them because I'm me, right? Like, obviously you're not going to feel like them because you have a different life, a different belief system, a different background, different trauma, different parents. Like, everything about you is different than that person. But imagine that you're that person with their life, their trauma, their experiences, their emotions, their beliefs. Then you're going to feel exactly how they're feeling. And that's why how they're feeling is valid and how you're feeling is valid. And neither one of those is invalid because they seem opposite. Just because they seem different, that doesn't invalidate them. That means this is true and this is true, and these two people are living in completely different realities. So how can we bridge those by creating a bridge, literally, so we can understand all the sides, and then we're not fighting anymore. Then we're like having compassion, and then that's what creates unity.
I couldn't agree with you more. I have a shirt on my site right now that says debating is not relating, because
it's not.
Again, that
Hey, can you tell that to my husband, please? Thank you.
You can order a shirt for him. No, I think, again, we've sort of been trained by social media and media in general to just debate the issues and that what about this, nonsense. And the real work comes in relating, and it also comes in understanding exactly what you just said, Kelsey, that as soon as we understand that my actions have consequences and yours do, and it's all affected, and what somebody does across the world affects me, and that we are one, and like I feel like we're in a crisis of species right now. If we don't
Right.
get that, if we miss that opportunity to get that again, like I don't know, I can't even imagine what the future is going to look like for kids if we don't get this lesson right now. It just feels so crucial to get it.
Yeah, and it's not just kids, right? It's the other animals on
Yeah.
the planet that we treat like shit.
Yeah.
It's the actual planet that we
Yeah.
see as separate from us. Like, it's an epidemic on a universal scale, not
and
just
that starts with our government too, because we have all these systems where, like, okay, the federal government gave everybody the right to vote, but then they like left these loopholes in for you know, local governments to abuse it. So when I would argue and be fierce about this too, if you're a person in power, and your power, in order for you to have power, you have to keep people in a place of powerlessness, you're an asshole, and you need to be destroyed, because that is not power. Power should be power that unites us, and that we all flourish in that, and not just these people are not going to get any of that goodness, because as long as I'm on top, Jeff Bezos.
Well, right. Well, as for what you were saying about the kids, like, that has been my main focus as a mother of 3 boys. I really wanted to make sure when, you know, before it was brought to my awareness, the injustice, right, to the degree that it actually is, because we don't see it. We just don't see it. It's not in our peripheral vision. It's not in our vision. So I trusted the school system to teach them about Black History Month and Martin Luther King and all of these Black American great people that have built our country. And I was like, yeah, cool. He's going to school. I did my job as my parent. He's going to go to school. He's going to learn about this. And if he, you know, he would come home and teach me about Martin Luther King. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so amazing. My kid he's learning about it. Okay. So fast forward to when all of this really started to get upheaval, and I realized, okay, this is a revolution. This is a time when we can really create the world that we're going to live in. And we have this amazing opportunity to do that as white parents to facilitate that. So I told my son, I was like, he's 8 years old. I was like, I really should tell him what's going on. Kelsey, did I tell you this story, the conversation I had with Aiden?
Yeah, it was so cute.
So I was nervous, you know, because I didn't really know what, it's uncharted waters to tell your child that someone was murdered by the cops, who he, as a child, is going to see a cop as the good guy. That's just what we do. And so I explained what happened, and he said, well, how? And I was like, I'm not going to tell you exactly everything. Like, I didn't want to show him the video. I'm not there, but I did want to explain to him that people of color, you know, Black people especially, sometimes are targeted by the police. And I said, you know what the word racism means, right? And he's like, yeah. I was like, okay, there's a lot of that going on today. And he looked at me with this bewildered face. My beautiful 8-year-old innocent child looked at me like, what are you talking about? And I go, why are you looking at me like that? He goes, that's over. And I go, what? Racism's over. I was like, okay, no, it's not over. We still have a lot of work to do. And so, you know, we had a little bit more of a conversation that I won't necessarily go into detail about, but he and I both, he was very sad, you know, to hear that racism wasn't over, because he learned in school that the slavery was abolished and Black people have the same rights as white people, and that's what they're teaching. And so we had a very good conversation. And then at the end I said, so it's our job as white people, well, you know, he's half Mexican, but as people, to create the new world, and to create the world where everybody actually does have the same opportunities and the same rights and all this stuff. And I go, are you up for the job? You know, like, are you up for the mission? Because he's like all obsessed with superheroes. And he looked at me, yes. And so we had this like superhero moment where we're like, it is our job to make sure that this happens for everyone. And he's like, yes, Mom, I got it. And by then my 4-year-old had fallen asleep, so he wasn't really a part of the conversation, but he started out like listening, and he started out in the conversation too. But it's a constant conversation, but it really, it flabbergasted me that he didn't know slavery, that racism was still a thing. And in the same moment I was like, how does my son not know this from me? How have I not breached this topic before?
we have the privilege of turning it off and turning it on. Like we can,
Exactly.
we can immerse ourselves in real data and real experiences and talk to our friends, but let's face it, we can turn it off and turn it on. And I think you guys, you particularly Lindsay, would like, there's a doc on Amazon that's perfectly archived, very easy to find. It's called Black, White, and Us, and it's about families, usually Mormon white families in Utah that are adopting Black children, and they consider themselves very, spiritual, God-fearing people, and didn't really understand the kind of issues that they would face because they were not, they turned racism off, like they didn't, have that lens. And there's one particular story of this family that had a conversation with a boy probably about the same age as your son, and he's adopted, so Black son, white parents. He comes home and they were having this conversation about like career day or something, and they asked their son, like, well, what do you think you're going to want to do? Like, what's the kind of career that you're thinking about? And he goes, I don't know, Mom. I don't know what I can do in jail. So just, process that for a minute. The innocence of that, like he's heard that he's going to end up in jail from kids or whatever's happening at school, and to have the innocence and the freaking heart and the resilience to go, but I'm going to make it anyways. But like to be told that you're just going to end up in, I just can't even, even process that. Like I can't, and they couldn't either, and then they realized like in that moment how they haven't exposed him to Black culture and, and really prepared him for these moments, and, and really had to dive in and check themselves and not just make it like a one-time webinar, but to like a continuous learning. But can you imagine that?
No. And there's in social media, there's so many things being, shared and reposted and reintroduced to people. And there was that Jane Elliott. I don't know. I've dove so deep into Jane Elliott. I think she's a freaking superhero, but she first did her brown eye, blue eye experiment, in like 1968 or something. And I watched it, the original one. And the kids, she's like, yeah, brown eye people are better than blue eye people because they're, and she starts naming all these ridiculous reasons. And the kids are so like heartbroken. Like you can see, you don't get to play at recess. You have to stay in, and while these kids go out, and they just look heartbroken. And for a minute, I was like, my mother spirit was like, oh, protect these children. What are you doing? But then I was like, oh, wait, they can't handle this for 2 days. And then, Black kids and people of color have to deal with this. This is real for them. Like, this is what they have to deal with every day. So they can handle it for 2 days.
Well, that's
be fine.
Saying, like, I'm in pain right now.
Yes.
And I'm like, but you know what? I really believe, like, put yourself in, if there's a thing that white people can do right now is purposely put themselves in pain. And when you feel that you can't go on, keep going. And then you're just starting to scratch the surface of what people of color have felt their whole life, because they have generations of stories in their body from their parents and their grandparents and their own experiences. And, then we just start to begin to feel what they feel. And then that's just the beginning. And then we get activated,
Then we
stand up and like, and really understand what defunding the police means and what voter rights, I think those are the two major things that need to change from our federal government to really make this a really meaningful moment. Like to not have someone go, we've done this over and over again. And this is where I'm at the generation, I know I'm a little bit older than you guys, that like I can see sort of things from younger people and people that are older than me, and the people that are older that have always been in civil rights, like they kind of know that there's this process in politics and everything takes long, and the young people are like, screw that, like we've been here, the same stories have happened over and over again, like we want this to stop, we're not going to do it politically, we're not going to wait for things to happen, it has to happen immediately. And it will be interesting to see.
Well, it's been a week, and did you guys hear about, at the time of this recording, it's been a week, and the Minneapolis city council or something has announced their intent to disband the police department and start with community-led safety solutions. Whatever that means, we don't know. I think it's a huge step forward. And I was just telling my friend, I don't know what that means, but it will hopefully be something that works for everybody, because we are paying for this service. Like we are paying for these people to protect us.
Yeah. Well,
So let's figure that out.
I think what it means, and it's a good thing to encourage, I think your viewers to think about is like to look at your local government and look at the budget of your local city and your county and see how imbalanced that budget is and how much is going to police. And the whole mindset behind defunding the police is like it's disproportionately, the budget is put towards police. And if we put it towards preventative things, like which we all believe in, wellness, like let's really make communities safe. Let's put it towards education. Let's put it towards mindfulness. Let's protect our marginalized communities. Then we wouldn't need so much policing, right? We rely on them for too many things. That's what they're really saying. It's like, it's just take the money out of the budget, put it towards other things so we don't rely on the police to do all this. And keep in mind, I think what Black Lives Matters people will say is they're also being the prosecutor, right? Anytime that they impose violence on somebody that they arrest, like that's not their job. They were supposed to be called peace officers. Like they're not there. When someone's in the hands of the police, they're still a suspect at that point, unless they witnessed the crime, which most of them don't. They're a suspect, and they're treating people like they're convicting them when they choose to be so violent with them. So like taking that power away and restructuring, that's what that means. But yeah, it starts with like moving the money around, because we know like money is the thing that makes people powerful and makes entities and organizations powerful. So they don't have the money, they're going to have to operate in a different way.
Mm-hmm. Right. I just think of like in this whole thing, as I'm watching it unfold, I'm like, there's so many people who need therapy. Like if they could just have therapy, we would not have a lot of
I agree
happening in the world today.
I agree. So my big position, and I'm waiting to kind of talk about this because it's not the right time, but I believe like when I was trying to relate and challenge myself when I'm watching below fires being set and these stores being looted, and I'm like, what do I have in common with a looter? And I really quickly came up with lovelessness. I mean, I believe we live in a time where lovelessness is just rampant, and everybody feels it, whether you come from a single parent family or you've got grown up trying to like date with a dating app involved and all the nonsense that happens there, like, and then how convenient it has become to just consume, right? To just be a consumer on all levels. Consume food, I get it delivered. Consume little stuff on Amazon, yeah. It's easy, So convenience has even chipped away at love. I think social media has chipped away at love because we are out of practice at relating. So and love is a big component of mental wellness. If we feel love, we act in love. Mm-hmm. If we don't feel it, we don't act in it. I mean, I still consider myself right now in this moment very triggered. And when you're triggered, and when a human being is triggered, it's very tribal. So my tribalism right now is for my local community. It's for my neighbors, and I'm like, oh, mama bear on them, which definitely creates animosity to anybody outside of that. I'm aware of that. I have to watch my feelings and, my actions because I'm triggered, So yeah, I mean, it sounds so silly, but we've had beautiful musicians and poets over time say, love is all we need. And it's not, it's true, it's true. If we knew how to practice that more and be more loving with each other, I think that would be a good place to start.
Yeah. Stephanie, I have a question for you,
Yeah.
A personal question.
Okay.
How would you define your personal definition of love?
I just got goosebumps thinking about this because, my definition comes from a very old book. It's called The Road Less Traveled with N. Scott Peck. And I remember reading the definition that he used in the book, and I immediately got goosebumps. And to this day, even thinking about it, I still have the same. And he said, love is the willingness to extend yourself for someone else's spiritual growth. And
it's really similar to mine.
Yeah, what's yours?
Mine is love is when you take something as a part of yourself. So let's say if I love you, if you're my friend, Stephanie, when I make a decision that's going to affect both of us, I'm going to make sure that it's in your well-being and my well-being because I love you and I want you and I need you to be well because you're a part of me.
Yeah, it goes back to your one, what you were saying earlier. I love it. I agree.
Yeah. Lindsay, it's your turn.
Okay, so Bear with me because I have my floor being done downstairs and it's really loud sometimes. Let me come up, I'm see if I can come up with a good name. Honestly and truly, the most connected I've ever felt with like source love, unconditional love, like the love that everybody's always looking for. It's got to be when I had my kids. Like I've never felt anything like it. Never. There's no one on this planet that I would jump in front of a bullet for, except for my children.
I think that makes sense to what Kelsey and I both said, because when we talk about love, we're talking about the extension of, not the expectation of receiving it, but being in a position where like you want everybody around you to feel that, and you're extending, you know, and you're also willing to go out of your comfort zone to do that because it's so important. Like you're, you know, mama bearing love.
Like I'm normally a pretty reasonably fearful person. Like I'm not someone to put myself in danger, and if I do, I'm very aware of the danger, right? But if you harm, like if I had any inclination there was danger with my kids, I wouldn't even be like it's one of those things, like it would all leave my brain and I would use my body to protect their bodies. Like in any situation I will fight someone. Like I'm not a fighter, but I think it's, you know, and so I think about like, well, how does that translate to the love piece? And I just think it's like my self-preservation goes out the window when I think of my kids, or, you know, to some extent it's my husband as well, but nowhere close. It's nowhere close. Like I love my husband. He's an amazing human and I'm so glad I picked him, but it's not even close. And I think he would agree and say the same thing. It's just something like I've never experienced before ever. And I don't know how else to explain it.
I think love has such a close relationship with creation. So like if you think about kids as being sort of an art form, it's like the art that your love with your husband created. Like there's something about, and even like spirituality, creation, they're so connected. So I can understand how that, I don't have children, I have nieces and nephews, and I'm you know, feel the same way about them, but I can understand how that gets magnified when flesh of your flesh is standing in front of you, you know?
It's crazy. It's like the closest thing to divine that I can think of, because it's just like when I look at them, I'm like, ooh, you're fresh from like the spirit world. Like they're so connected, right? You're fresh from the oven.
That's
like
sweet.
Especially my baby, like my 18-month-old, like he talks, you know, he's got a few words down, but for the most part, he's just in his own little world, in his own little body, in his own little head, and I know he's still connected to that like higher part. And when I see them, I'm just like, wow, you're like fresh, like you're connected. And it's just it helps me feel closer to that oneness and that consciousness and that like unity of the universe. It's crazy, guys.
I love that.
I feel like every conversation's coming back to my kids, and it never happens. Like I don't think, does it, Kelsey? I don't think it always happens, but it's just this episode.
Well,
I'm always talking about
we're going to talk about your kids when we're talking about love. Like that's
no, but I mean, like I feel like this whole episode I've been like talking about my kids, my kids. But they've come up a lot.
But we started this with talking about the future, right? Like we're at that really meaningful moment that is ripe for opportunity to reshape our future, and I think we all feel that, you know, and we know that it's important to feel that. So it's natural to talk about your kids when we're talking about the future.
Yeah. And that also goes back to what Kelsey said about like, it's an extension of you. How much more on the nose can you get? Like, it's definitely an extension of me. Mm-hmm. And so maybe, you know, I think a lot for my kids as well is me kind of repairing some of my inner child stuff, which is probably creating new inner child stuff for them, but whatever. Like you can't always get it right.
Go through it. You can't save them from those things.
You can't always get it right every time. But yeah, a lot of that is like nurturing my inner child by nurturing theirs, or nurturing them is really kind of repairing. I've definitely noticed that that's a thing as well for me. So in a way it's self-love too.
Yeah, all love is self-love, because everything as a part of yourself, then you are loving yourself when you love someone or something. And that's why I always say, you like, to a certain degree, you can only love other people to the capacity that you can love yourself, because the way that you love in the outer world is a direct reflection of the way that you love yourself. So let's take that cop, for example, in the George Floyd incident. Like, he probably treats a part of himself that he doesn't like, just like how he treated that man. That's a direct reflection of how he feels about some part of himself, because that man is a part of himself. So imagine if this cop knew how to love all the parts of himself, his the parts that he deemed unacceptable, or the parts that he didn't necessarily like, or the parts that made him lose connection from other people. Like, if he could find understanding and love for those parts of him, he wouldn't have treated that person like that.
Yeah, I
and
totally
that's
agree.
where I just go back to like, oh, therapy is the answer.
I mean, yeah, you know, like it's also well documented, you know, especially in the South, that when slaves were freed, that the same, like the things that white slave owners would accuse Black people of before they were even doing it were the things that they did to them. So
yes,
you know, generations of, sorry, white men, I'm just going to say white men raping and murdering and lynching, and like, so they're carrying that fear of, you know what, I know I did it, or my ancestors did it, so I'm going to be fearful of you, because you know what, you should rise up. You know, when you know, I'm sure you've seen like people in this movement going, we're lucky that we're just asking for equal rights and not revenge. You know, they have every right to do that. You couldn't argue when you start to like really dive into the horrific things that were done to people, human beings, you know? So yeah, you're right. He's carrying it in his body, and he definitely was treating himself in that way. I mean, it's no surprise that his wife filed for divorce right away. She's probably got her own, you know, traumas.
I did not know that.
Yeah, she filed for divorce like I think like 2 or 3 days after it really hit the news cycle.
Before he was charged, she filed.
Yeah.
Wow,
yeah.
Good for her.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good for her. You know, yeah. I in no way is anyone, I think any reasonable human would not say, yeah, but look at it from his perspective. You know, like, it's just ridiculous to even say. I didn't even want to say that. It's just so stupid. Well, but I agree with you guys. Like, I think anyone can agree that how, like what Kelsey said, how we treat people is a reflection of how we treat ourselves, how we feel about ourselves, what's going on with us. And to piggyback off of that statement, if you don't love yourself, or if there's parts of you that you can't respect or look at or examine or repair or heal, don't be a goddamn cop. Don't do it. I'm sorry. Don't. You cannot be bad at that job. You just can't. Right.
Well, that's where the system has failed too, because like they should be screening that out.
Yes.
You know? And they should have an empathy training.
And I'm sorry I said GD, guys. I'm really sorry, but it just came out, and I feel very passionate about that. Like, you do not get to have feelings. You don't get to have like your ego. You don't get to get your feelings hurt. You don't get to react. You are a protector. You are someone to serve. Do your jobs better. I'm sorry. That's all. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I have to do this, or I will keep talking. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's that, but you know, it's not like, yes, you're right, but it's not even on the individual that's applying to be a police officer. The system was based on white supremacist, you know, principles. So it just has to be completely changed. You know, it has to be like, you can't build. It's like if we're gonna go talk, we're gonna talk about God. I mean, I remember the preschool song, you know, the wise man builds his house upon the sand, you know, and you don't remember the song. It's like, you can't, if there's no foundation for goodness in a system, you got to create a new system. You can't just keep putting Band-Aids on something that needs open heart surgery. It's just, it doesn't work that way. And you know, we have the very slow moving. I wish more young entrepreneurial people were in government, because people that are resistant to change just for the sake of being resistant to change are not who should be leading this country right now. You know, I mean, I'm not saying like older people can't be more agile, but you know, we have a lot of old white men that I would want to spit on if I saw them on the sidewalk.
You know,
and I'm not a violent person. Like,
you know how when you get to a certain age, you have to like retake your driver's test every year to make sure you can still see and you have cognitive functions. They should be able to do that for like your views on the world and where that's going. Like, I know this is a radical statement, but like, let's check in to see if what you want for this world is in alignment with the good of all.
But I don't even think that solves it, because there's so much corruption and like, you know, lobbyists and, you know, people aligning themselves with a certain congressperson or senator. and saying like, if you sneak this little part of this bill into this one, I'm going to pay you. And, you know, I've been in experiences I'll never forget. Like when I lived in Dallas, I used to throw parties all the time, and I threw a New Year's Eve party, and it was like really successful. And I partnered with these two guys, and I, you know, trusted them, and we were having a great time. But then there was a moment where like cash money was like laying on the table, right? Like stacks of it, because like people were really coming to this really cool party, and they like started to say, oh, we deserve this much more, and they like tried to distract my attention and take more. I'm like, money, you know, money does really crazy things to people. And they make different decisions because they're going to get paid. And then, you know, they have circumstances of children and they want to put through college, and then they decide this, you know, which is lesser of two evils. So, you know, it's not just about checking to see where your values are, because I think a lot of people vote against their values. Because,
so true.
Yeah. You know, and they somehow justify it.
Yeah.
Probably because they're getting paid.
Hey there, thanks for watching this video. If you'd like to watch the extended version where you get the full podcast episode in a video format, just go to patreon.com/highvibe. The link is in the description. That's where you can become a supporter of the show, listen to all the episodes via video format, and each week you get extended versions of the show, meaning you get to see the pregame behind the scenes, and also you get an extended interview with whoever we're guesting, or if it's me and Lindsay, we usually pull cards for you guys, fun stuff like that. So go check it out. There's lots of cool goodies, including a free copy of my book, a free audio hypnosis from Lindsay. She's a hypnotherapist. And yeah, we just want to give you all the goods, all the content. So head over to patreon.com/highvibe to become a Patreon.
Or if you'd rather listen to the rest of this episode, head over to highvibeinit.com, where you'll see all the links to everywhere that it's getting streamed. Click your favorite one and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Thanks for listening.